So in self-bitterness, we're very hard on ourselves. We hold a high standard of performance on ourselves. We hold grudges against ourselves. How many of us do the should, woulda, coulda stuff? Well, if only I'd done this. You know, that's a sign of self-bitterness. And we just think, oh, that's the enemy, I'm going to just kick him out. Well, if you don't get rid of that self-bitterness, you're not going to move forward. We keep a record of others' failures towards us. Well, if David hadn't done this to me, I wouldn't be here. And that's judging, criticizing, accusing. And we do a lot of that. We don't forgive. We resent ourselves because we're not perfect. And it can lead to shame and guilt. So when you feel shamed and guilty, check and see if you have self-bitterness. And we got to learn to just say, I'm a little girl. I did the best I could. I forgive myself. And self-bitterness takes us to, this is very important, self-bitterness will take you into self-accusation, self-condemnation, and to self-hatred. And it is a subconscious thing. And I have only now begun to battle this one in the last year. Self-bitterness produces unforgiveness towards ourselves. And we're only concerned about self. Self, self, self. We don't forgive ourselves. How many times have I said self? Do you see how self, this unloving spirit is? It's all about self. And that's what the devil wants. It was all about him. I will exalt myself above God. I will. I. And that's what he is. He's all about himself. He wants to kill us. He wants everybody to go to hell with him because he can't be saved. He is the one that when you get mad at him. Don't get mad at God. That's what I used to do. Well, God, I'm mad at you. Why am I mad at him? It wasn't him. So we have self-bitterness. It takes us to self-unforgiveness. That comes from guilt, and it's a false humility. You tell yourself, oh, it's more holy not to forgive myself, and I should punish myself. Now, this is a clue here that we don't really love ourselves. That's why we're here. That's why we have self-unforgiveness. We don't deserve love. That is the programming I heard as a child. You don't deserve to even be on this earth. Then you go to self-resentment, and that comes out of the self-bitterness. You can't do anything right. The harder you try, the behinder you get. Do you ever feel that way? You've never been good enough, and you'll never be good enough. You just can't be good enough for that person, for those people. Then you go to self-retaliation. Rejection causes you to go into the face of another person, to rail, to argue, so that you're not rejected. You reject first. You find something so that you can reject them before they reject you. And that's why you've got to kill that rejection. Then unloving comes up, and it starts accusing you, and it tells you that you aren't loved. And that produces continual victimization. This is where we're going to go now. We're going to get into victimization soon. It drives a woman back to a husband who beats her. How many kids have alcoholic parents and they say, I will not marry an alcoholic? They end up marrying an alcoholic. And there is a reason for that. The unloving Antichrist spirit needs to get its fix. So self-retaliation manifests in excessive eating and self-mutilation. Self-anger and wrath. We're going down now. We're getting deeper. The roots are deeper. We're looking at the massive self here. I want you to understand when I showed you last week that bitterness. Well, these self-spirits are so deep in our spirit, man. These just didn't happen today. They've been there a long, long time. So in self-anger, did I do that already? Yes. Did I? Yes. Okay, self-hatred. Now self-hatred wants you destroyed. And you don't go to self-hatred unless you have all the other pieces in place. Self-bitterness to self-wrath. This is an advanced state. It's been simmering for days, for weeks, or months, or years for me. It's been simmering in there. So it uses our voice to tell us that we hate ourselves. It'll get us to hurt ourselves, and it'll get us to take us out of here before our time. It makes us angry with ourselves, and it opens the door to fear. So when you have self-hatred, you're in massive fear. And the diseases that come out of self-hatred lead to death, period. Then you go to self-violence, and it manifests through bodily harm, through cutting. Now, if a child does it, it's generational. And if an adult, it's rejection, and it's being one with unloving, unforgiveness, self-unforgiveness, and self-rejection. So we've got rejection, but we've got to look at the self-rejection now. And we're right with God when we get the Father's love. We're right with others when we deal with the rejection and the envy and jealousy. Now we got to get right with ourselves here. Then this takes us from self-bitterness to self-murder. It's where it wants to kill. We want to kill ourselves, and we can give up. We just give up, and we just go hide, and then we get sick because our hypothalamus is going down, serotonin, and we're depressed, and when we just open the door for the enemy. Then self-torment comes. Thoughts and images of the past torment you. It's fear. If we've been a victim, there's a transference of those spirits into us. Fear comes in because of the spirit of rejection. Rebellion links up with the unloving spirit, and we go into resisting the authority over us. We reject God's choice for us. So ultimately, when we're at the self-murder level, we are in rebellion. We don't believe a word that God says about us. We have believed every lie that has been spoken over us. Then we go into self-rejection. That comes out of fear. It accuses you to yourself, and you can't accept yourself. It's rooted in self-fear. You're afraid of yourself. You reject yourself. Self-rejection says you're not accepted. You're a mistake. Then again, your body responds, but this time now it responds in autoimmune diseases. Your immune system is totally compromised because you have lingered too long in this horrible area of being. And the ultimate bottom of the pit, so to speak, is self-pity. Self-pity is one of the legs an unloving spirit stands on. It is a spirit, a self. It won't allow you to go on to the future. An accusing spirit holds you back, and you say, I'm feeling so sorry for myself, nothing's working for me. A person in self-pity will always think about what's happening to me. It's always me, me, me. Oh, poor me. It takes us to depression, anger, jealousy, strife, fear, discontent, self-deception, blame, denial, judging, criticizing, controlling, confusion. Self-pity is the superglue that binds your soul to the hell of your past. It will stop you from moving forward. And self-pity keeps you a victim. And you will continue to ask why. So if why is a big word in your vocabulary, it may be a clue to self-pity. Now I'm going to try to go a little quicker through these 4 patterns to note. There is the self-mutilator. This is the person that cuts, maybe burns or pounds their flesh. They have shame and they hide. Bulimia and anorexia are manifestations. Body piercing, tattoo, cutting, surgeries. Lots of guilt, shame, and self-hatred. The accident-prone person. These are people that, well, the self-hatred causes bumps, bruises, broken bones, falls, critical near-death injuries, which I have experienced a lot of. Self-destruction may be a conscious choice, but most of us operate on a subconscious level. Then the lonely one, the isolation, that's the self-pity one. These spirits get a person to feel like a social outcast. They feel alone, they feel invisible, they talk low, they sometimes aren't heard. Then we have the great ones. These are the ones that the spirits get to be good actors, and this was me. I was a good actor. The pendulum would swing from self-hatred to grandiosity. I was ever running to avoid feeling valueless. I would deny that I had any self-hatred. And everything was great. But inside me, I knew that little voice would say, things were terrible, I was no good. I didn't need to be here, I should die. What good am I? I can't do anything right anyway. So the unloving spirit's goal is ultimately to take you deep into self. It will victimize you because he hates you and he wants to destroy you. So my question today for you, as it took me a few years to ask myself, are you a victim? Is it possible you've been victimized? Victimization means adversity resulting from being made a victim. It's a state of misfortune or affliction. Adversity is a state of hardship or affliction. A calamitous event, and that would be traumas in our life. So adversities would be traumas in our life. Now, I find this very interesting. It says, victim is a person who suffers from adversity, which would be trauma. And it says, sacrificed under any of various conditions, for example, murder. And I thought, isn't it funny? We are victims. When we become victimized, we become victims of the devil. And I don't want to be a victim of the devil any longer. I am done with victimization. I am not a victim. I am victorious. That did not happen instantly, but I will tell you, you can be a victorious Christian. So, some signs of victimization. There's tons of them, and I don't know. I'm getting late on time here. Am I okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. Victims accuse others. They're very needy. They're afraid to ask for help because of the abuse. I didn't know what to ask. I didn't know what to ask. I had a huge need to be loved, and I was programmed to look for love in all the wrong places. They're self-mutilators. They pierce, they scar, they fall, they bump, they hurt themselves because they don't love themselves. They have hopelessness, hope deferred, and hope deferred makes the heart sick and it makes the body sick. You're filled with fear. You can speak word curses over yourself. You feel unloved. You have an addictive personality. Nothing good's ever going to happen. You don't feel needed or necessary. That is a result of when I was 10 and I was sexually abused. I went to my mother and I told her, and she said to me, that did not happen to you.
Or it's your fault.
And that fractured my mind, that I could not trust myself and I could not trust anybody. So as a result, I was so broken and wounded that whatever anybody said to me, I accepted. And victims do to others what's been done to them. And they can't see anything else. You know, they hurt, so others are going to hurt. They're always trying to justify their behavior. They're always right. They're very proud and they have a religious spirit. I certainly did. Constantly complain. They hate it when other people try to help them by pointing out their faults. Even when they ask, then they get mad. They stay stuck in life and don't change because they don't know how to. They were never taught. I was never taught in my growing up. I was taught to be seen and not heard. That's it, period.
Yeah.
Go over there and sit down and be still. And if I want to talk to you, I'll talk to you. That was it. I spent hours alone. And when I go outside, I spend hours alone because nobody wanted to play with me. And I don't say that to have self-pity. I'm just trying to help you to recognize things. And they think, a victim thinks they have to make everybody happy. Oh my gosh. I had to make everybody in my life happy. My kids, my husband. And I had unrealistic expectations on others. There's competition and comparison. I was always comparing myself to others. I started on amphetamines at age 11. I took them till I met Jesus, and by His grace I got off of the amphetamines. I was skinny. I was a size 9. I was everything my mom wanted me to be, but I was in hell, to say the least. So meeting other people's expectations is not necessarily a good thing. So we need to know what we need, and we get that from Father God. They're very controlling. They control everything because of fear. Their environment, people. They just can't let go. Everything's an issue. Everything is, oh God, let's do this. Let's pray over this. Blah, 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 blah. They can't forgive. They hold record of wrongs. They have self-idolatry. I'm sorry?
Perfectionist.
Yeah, perfectionist.
Everything.
Yeah.
Just
They're very tormented. In my mind, there was no peace. There were words that ran through my head all day long. This accusation, this comment, this thing. I was like, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. I just would struggle to get my thoughts in line. But when Tracy did trauma work, I will tell you, those things were gone. They were just evil spirits that were accusing me. So, questions to ask yourself. Have you ever experienced repeated victimization in your life? And let's look at some of the ways. How about surgeries? Lots of surgeries. Lots of accidents. Sexual abuse running down the family tree. Because sometimes that sexual abuse can skip a generation. Pastor Henry has indicated that. But maybe your mom was sexually abused. And that might have been transferred down into you through your mom. Financial losses. As I said last week, as your bucket got a hole in it, everything you put in just goes out. Constantly struggling to make ends meet. People die in the family at the same age.